She thought it was just another night under the overpass. A fire barrel, a mutt at her side, and a city that didn't see her. Then the sky tore open, a helicopter spinning, screaming metal, and when it hit the ground, the fire lit up the night like a war zone. Denise Booker ran toward it, through the smoke, through the flames, and pulled a bleeding Army Ranger out of the wreck, dragging her across 100 yards of fire while the world thought she was the villain, because the first man who saw her didn't see the rescue. He saw the blood and accused her of murder. Before I show you how the truth finally came out, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and hit that subscribe button, because this story isn't about what burned that night. It's about who survived it. Now let's get into it. The wind that cut beneath the freeway overpass didn't carry a name, only cold. It whistled low across the damp concrete and tugged at Denise Booker's oversized army coat like it wanted to peel her from her spot beside the fire barrel. She ignored it. Beneath the coat, she wore 2 shirts, a pair of patched jeans that had seen better years, and a beanie stretched down to her brows. Her fingers, calloused and stiff, held a chunk of cardboard between the flame and her face. She wasn't warming up. She was surviving. Rusty, her mutt with wiry fur and a limp in his back leg, lay curled beside her. He twitched in his sleep, dreaming of something far less cruel than the world above. His ribs showed. So did hers. The city was awake, just not for people like them. Trucks rumbled far off on the highway. A siren cried from a few neighborhoods away. Denise tossed in a scrap of wood and watched the flame flicker. Then, the sound came, low at first, like thunder rolling late, but it didn't stop rolling. It grew louder, closer, tearing through the quiet with a rumble that raised every hair on her arms. Rusty snapped up, growling before his paws even settled. Denise stood instinctively, heart already sprinting. Over the edge of the overpass, something flashed through the sky, black against the darker night, sinning, buttering, belching sparks. A helicopter. Too low, way too low. It veered sharply, tilted, and then a metallic shriek cut through the sky as its tail clipped a distant warehouse roof. The aircraft tumbled in the air, pitched once, then dropped like a fist into a fenced-off lot on the other side of the industrial block. The explosion didn't come all at once. First came the impact, metal slamming earth, then the ripple of fire. Orange and red bloomed over the trees like war had been dropped onto the edge of the city. Rusty barked once, then again. Denise didn't think. She grabbed the crowbar she kept by the barrel and ran. Her boots slapped wet pavement as she climbed up the embankment and cut behind the abandoned tire shop. Smoke was already rising, thick and black and fast. She knew this area. The lot wasn't visible from the road, boxed in by construction fencing and the old shipping yard. She didn't pause to call for help. By the time help got here, someone would be dead. Rusty bounded ahead of her, yelping as the smoke hit his eyes. Denise pulled her scarf up over her nose, eyes watering. The heat was growing with every step. She hopped the bent fence, dropped hard on the other side, and froze. The wreckage lay in pieces. Part of the tail jammed into a tree, the cockpit buried in dirt and twisted steel. Fire danced across the ground, licking at exposed wires and fuel lines. And then she heard it. A voice. Weak. Gasping. Denise's feet moved before her thoughts could catch up. "Hold on," she called out, not even sure who she was yelling to. Rusty barked, ran toward the sound. Denise followed. Smoke wrapped around her like arms trying to pull her back, but she kept going, toward the crash, toward the voice, toward the fire. The wreck hissed and groaned like it was alive, steel popping under pressure, fire dancing with sharp, hungry fingers. Denise Booker pushed through the thick curtain of smoke, coughing behind her scarf. Her eyes burned, but she didn't blink. The voice was close. "Help!" it croaked again, fainter this time. Denise veered left, stepping over a half-melted rotor blade. Rusty barked sharply, standing near a twisted piece of the fuselage. That's where the voice had come from, buried beneath the crumpled hull. Denise knelt beside it, brushing ash and shattered glass aside with trembling hands. "Hello? Can you hear me?" she called. A strained groan answered, then a face barely visible in the tangle of metal and wiring. A woman, pale, blood running down from her hairline into the grime. Her mouth was parted, eyes fluttering between open and closed. Denise's chest clenched. "You're gonna be all right," she said. "Just hold on." The woman's voice was hoarse. "My leg, I can't move." Denise leaned closer, trying to make out her injuries. The woman was in military fatigues, torn, burned, soaked in blood at the thigh. A name tag was half scorched, unreadable. Her left leg was pinned under a steel support beam that jutted through the wreckage like a spear. A pool of dark blood spread beneath her, soaking into the earth. "Okay," Denise muttered. Okay. I got you." She stood and wedged her shoulder under the angled beam. It didn't budge. She repositioned, pressed harder. Still nothing. She glanced around, spotted a loose piece of rebar, about 4 feet long, near the fire's edge. She dashed over, ignoring the heat biting at her skin, and snatched it up. Back at the wreck, she jammed it under the support beam like a lever. "Come on, damn it," she hissed through gritted teeth. The soldier screamed as the metal shifted. Denise flinched, not at the sound, but at how bad it must be. "I'm sorry," she yelled. "Just hold still." With a grunt that felt like it came from her bones, Denise pushed down with everything she had. The beam groaned, moved, then, with a sickening crunch, it shifted just enough. The soldier's leg came free, mangled and soaked. Denise dropped to her knees and pulled the woman out with shaking arms. The smell of fuel was stronger now. Denise gagged, looked around, saw a burst pipe spewing a steady stream from the cracked fuel line near the rear. "We have to move, now!" The soldier clung weakly to her. "Who are you?" "Name's Denise," she said, hoisting the soldier's arm over her shoulders. "You can call me Dee, just hold on." The woman's head lolled. "Sergeant Dana Hart," she whispered. Denise didn't know it yet, but saving Dana wouldn't be the hardest part tonight. "Well, Sergeant Hart," Denise growled, starting the drag, "you better stay awake. Ain't nobody dying on my watch tonight." They moved inch by inch, Denise's boots slipping in the mud and ash. Rusty barked from ahead, clearing the path. Every muscle in Denise's back screamed. The soldier was heavy and her leg trailed uselessly, leaving a red streak through the dust. Behind them, the wreck hissed louder. A spark jumped from one of the twisted panels. Denise didn't look back. She kept moving, dragging Sergeant Hart through the smoke, step by agonizing step, until the night behind them lit up in a fireball that turned the whole sky orange. The blast behind them knocked Denise off her feet. A wave of heat rolled over the trees, and for a moment the ground itself seemed to shudder. Denise landed hard on her side, grunting as her shoulder smacked a broken curb. Sergeant Hart groaned beside her, semi-conscious, her wounded leg trembling in the aftershock. Rusty barked wildly, circling them, then darting up the incline toward the road. Denise blinked the smoke out of her eyes and looked around. They had made it to the edge of the lot, a cracked strip of broken asphalt that met the highway above via a grassy slope. From where they lay, the tree line thickened, half shielding them from view. Denise glanced down at Hart's leg. The bleeding hadn't stopped. She tore another strip from her undershirt and wrapped it tight around the wound. "You with me?" "Soldier?" she asked, brushing soot from Hart's brow. Hart's eyes fluttered open. "Thought I was dead?" "You ain't," Denise muttered. "Not yet." That's when a voice rang out from the highway. "What the hell's going on down there?" Denise turned. A silver sedan had pulled onto the shoulder above. A man in his 40s stood beside it, wearing a hotel valet vest over his polo. His face was twisted in alarm, or maybe disgust. His phone was already in hand, recording. "What did you do to her?" he shouted. "Is she bleeding? Did you stab her?" Denise froze, one hand still on Hart's thigh. Her fingers were slick with blood. Her clothes, already ragged, were soaked and stained crimson now, her hair wild with soot and sweat. The man's voice sharpened. "I'm calling the cops! I didn't hurt her! Denise shouted back. She was in a helicopter crash. The fire. There was a fire. But the man didn't come closer. He paced in a small circle near his car, eyes darting between his phone and the scene below. I saw you dragging her, he barked. What is this, some gang thing? You trying to hide the body? He saw blood, but he didn't see the fire she dragged her from. Denise's jaw clenched. She looked at Hart, whose head had rolled to the side again, unconscious. No, she said firmly. She needs help. She's military. An army ranger. There was a crash right back through those trees. The man didn't listen. He turned away and spoke into the phone. Yeah, highway shoulder, just past mile marker 49. There's a homeless woman down there, dragging a soldier. Might be dead. Looks like a stabbing. She's covered in blood. Send someone now. Denise's stomach dropped. Rusty barked at the man from halfway up the hill. His fur bristled. I'm not leaving her here, Denise muttered to herself, brushing ash from Hart's face. Not for this circus. Minutes passed. The man stayed parked, occasionally peeking over the edge, but not stepping down. Traffic zipped past on the far side of the highway. Nobody else stopped. Then, flashing lights in the distance, a highway patrol car pulled up fast behind the sedan. 2 officers emerged, guns holstered, but hands near their belts. The man pointed immediately toward the slope. There, he said. Down there. She's still moving. The officers looked down, saw Denise kneeling beside an unconscious woman, her hands red, her clothes burnt, her dog growling at the base of the hill. Ma'am, one officer called. Step away from her. She needs help, Denise yelled back. She's hurt. Please, just listen. Put your hands where we can see them, the second officer barked. Denise slowly raised her hands, trembling. I didn't hurt her. Move away from the body. She's not dead. It didn't matter. They started down the slope. Denise stayed kneeling, not because she didn't understand, but because she knew that no matter how loud she shouted the truth, they'd only see the dirt under her nails and the blood on her sleeves. Rusty barked once and backed up the slope, his ears flat as the 2 officers made their way down the embankment. Denise didn't move. Her hands stayed in the air, her knees in the mud, eyes wide but steady. Her breath came in shudders, chest still heaving from the adrenaline of dragging a dying woman through fire. And now this? She's not dead, Denise said again, quieter this time. She's not. One officer took that position, covering her. The other advanced slowly. Get up. Hands where I can see them, he said firmly. Denise obeyed. Her limbs were stiff, scorched from smoke, and shaking with exhaustion. She stood up, took 2 steps back from Hart, then froze. She was in a chopper crash, she tried again. I pulled her out. She was pinned under the wreckage, her legs busted. Turn around, the officer snapped. Denise did. They cuffed her. The cold metal bit into her raw wrists. The valet guy came halfway down the hill now, still filming. I told you, he said to the cops. She had blood all over her, dragging that poor woman like a rag doll. I saw it all. Denise shook her head. You didn't see a damn thing. The officer patted her down, pulled the tattered hoodie back from her face. Her cheek was bruised and black with soot. Her eyes were fierce, tired, and honest. But none of that mattered. Not here. Not yet. She needs a medic, Denise said, gesturing toward Hart with a nod. She's military. A ranger, I think. I heard the crash. She's not responsive, the second officer called out. Pulse is faint. We need EMS. The cop muttered under his breath. She fits the profile. We couldn't take chances. One of them radioed in for an ambulance. But it was clear they still didn't know what to make of the scene. Just a homeless woman, with blood on her hands, kneeling beside a bleeding soldier. We'll figure it out, the older cop muttered, trying to sound calm. Just sit tight. I was sitting tight, Denise snapped, eyes locked on the smoking tree line. But then a chopper came out of the sky. The valet guy cut in again, waving his phone. You should check that wreckage she's talking about. There was a loud bang earlier. Smoke started coming from the woods. It's hard to see, but if you go 10 steps that way. The officers turned, finally, and noticed it. The rising pillar of smoke, still faint in the distance, the way the treetops bowed toward a heat source. A second later, there was a soft metallic groan. something collapsing in the wreck. Denise raised her eyebrows. Told you. The officer looked back at her, eyes narrowing. Wait here, he told his partner, then jogged up toward the trees. The other officer knelt beside Hart. She's critical, he muttered. Barely hanging on. A pause, then from up the hill, a voice. Hey! There's wreckage! It's real! The whole damn back half of a helicopter. She wasn't lying. Another shout. Jesus, that's military equipment. The tension shifted. The younger cop's face twitched. He looked back at Denise, his jaw working. She stared right back. I didn't stab nobody, she said. I carried her out of a fire. Rusty whined at her side. Still wary, but sensing the energy had shifted. Within minutes, more sirens screamed in the distance. Ambulance, fire truck, something larger, lower, and behind it all, the rumble of heavier engines. Denise looked up at the sky, smoke curling above the canopy. About damn time, she muttered. And beside her, Hart groaned. Not loud, just enough. The officer stiffened. What did she say? Denise dropped to her knees, leaning close. Hart, come on now, say something. Hart's lips moved, barely audible. She saved me. The words hit like thunder. The valet guy slowly lowered his phone. The younger officer turned to stone, and from the highway above, a long olive-drab Humvee appeared. Just when it seemed no one would believe her. Boots hit the ground. The army had arrived. The first Humvee pulled off the shoulder. Mud spraying behind its thick tires as it creaked down the slope, like it owned the earth. A second followed close behind, brakes whining. Soldiers spilled out, not movie extras or ceremonial troops, but real boots, hard eyes, and voices like barked commands. Where is she? A sergeant yelled before his feet even hit the ground. The younger cop pointed toward Hart, still slumped where Denise had left her. She's here, he said, voice cracking. Unconscious, pulses faint. A pair of medics sprinted past him, with gear in hand. The sergeant followed with purpose, his boots sinking into the wet grass. He stopped mid-step when he saw Denise, ragged, cuffed, eyes hollow, but burning. He blinked. Who the hell cuffed her? She, the officer started, then faltered. She what? The sergeant growled. The other officer cleared his throat, quieter now. She said she pulled the ranger out of the crash. We didn't know what happened. A bystander thought, That's Staff Sergeant Hart, the sergeant snapped, cutting him off. Elite Airborne, attached to 3rd Battalion. That woman's the only reason she's not ashes right now. The valet guy slowly backed away, phone still in his hand, but no longer filming. Another soldier had jogged up from the tree line, out of breath. Confirmed. Chopper's military kit, blacked out tail section, rotors torn clean, fuel line blew out the back. He glanced at Denise. Who pulled her out? I did, Denise said, still cuffed. The sergeant stared, his eyes narrowed. Not suspicious, but assessing. He nodded once, then turned to the officer. Take those cuffs off. Now. There was a pause, the kind that lasts one beat too long. Now, officer. The cop moved, awkward, sheepish. The cuffs clicked open. Denise rubbed her wrists, trying not to wince. Rusty nosed her leg as if to confirm it was really over. The medic called out from beside Hart. She's alive, but fading fast. We need evac now. One of the Humvees roared back to life. Doors opened, gear tossed aside, and the team loaded Hart in with practice speed. The sergeant turned back to Denise. You carried her? Denise nodded. He looked her over. Her burned sleeves, her cracked boots, the ash in her hair. How far? From the wreck across the field, maybe 100 yards through that broken glass and fire, she said. I stopped once, thought she was gone. He stared, then quietly. You military? No? You ever been? No? What's your name? Denise Booker, she answered, lifting her chin. Well, Ms. Booker, the sergeant said, voice low. You just saved one of our best. One of the younger soldiers behind him muttered, That's gotta be a record drag distance for a civilian. Another added, In that condition? Through a field on fire? Jesus. The sergeant turned to the cops, eyes sharp again. Next time you're deciding whether to slap cuffs on someone, maybe check for a flaming helicopter in the woods first. The younger officer nodded, flushed and silent. The valet guy opened his mouth, then closed it again. Denise walked past them all. No cuffs now, just soot and steel in her eyes. The medics waved her over. You coming? Denise shook her head. She needs the seat more than me. A pause, then the sergeant stepped in close. We'll be in touch. I didn't do it for a medal, Denise said. You didn't do it for anything. That's the point. As the Humvee doors slammed shut and the convoy peeled off toward the hospital, Denise stood still at the tree line, the wind brushing through the grass that had almost been her grave. Rusty sat beside her. She whispered, "Told you, boy. Just had to hold on." Denise didn't go back to her makeshift camp that night. Instead, she sat on a concrete divider near the edge of the highway, Rusty curled tight at her feet. The rain had stopped hours ago, but she was still soaked, inside and out. Every muscle ached. Her jacket clung like a second skin, and her palms burned from the strain of dragging Staff Sergeant Hart across a minefield of broken metal and flame. Headlights came and went. Nobody stopped. Not that she expected them to. Around midnight, a beat-up sedan slowed, the window rolling halfway down. A woman in her 20s leaned out, face pale and anxious. "Were you the one who saved that soldier?" Denise blinked, unsure if the voice was real or a leftover echo. Yeah." The woman reached into a paper bag and handed over a sandwich, still warm. "People online are talking about it. Some guy filmed the aftermath, said you were being arrested for stabbing someone." Denise snorted. "Almost was. Well, they know now. Someone from the army commented. Said you saved her life. You're a hero." Denise shook her head. "Just a broke woman who couldn't look away. You could have died." "I know." A pause, the woman's eyes softened. "Thank you," she said, and drove off into the dark. Denise stared at the sandwich in her lap. She broke it in half and fed the bigger piece to Rusty. The rest of the night passed in fits of exhaustion. Every time she closed her eyes, the crash replayed in silent fire. The hissing fuel, the snap of broken metal, Hart's blood on her hands. At one point, she dreamed that she hadn't gotten her out, that they both burned. She jolted awake just before dawn, breathing hard. Rusty whined softly, nuzzling her arm. She stroked his head and whispered, "Still here, huh?" The sun rose gray and slow, filtered through smoke still drifting from the crash site. The smell lingered like bad memories, gasoline, and scorched earth. By mid-morning, people were stopping more often. A middle-aged man in a work van dropped off 2 bottles of water and a wool blanket. He didn't say a word. A teenager on a bike asked if she was the drag lady from TikTok. She almost laughed. "Don't call me that." A woman in uniform, civilian clothes but clearly ex-military, walked by, gave her a nod, didn't stop. But her eyes said enough. Denise sat still through it all. She wasn't looking for fame, wasn't comfortable with gratitude. The attention made her feel like she'd been caught in someone else's story. That afternoon, a sleek black SUV pulled up across the road. The driver stepped out. Short hair, pressed slacks, army-issued bearing in every move. She approached slowly, then stopped at the curb. "You're Denise Booker." It wasn't a question. Denise stood. "Yeah," the woman smiled faintly. "Lieutenant Colonel Ames. I'm with the Rangers Command Unit." She's awake. Denise's chest tightened. "She wanted you to know she remembers everything," Ames added. "She said you didn't hesitate. You dragged her through fire." Denise shrugged. "Did what I had to." "That's exactly what she said." Another pause. "We'll be in touch. She's asked for something personally." The colonel handed over a sealed envelope, nodded once, and left. Denise sat back down on the concrete, turning the envelope in her hands. No stamp, no address. Just her name, Denise Booker. Written in clean, careful cursive. Rusty sniffed it once and curled back down beside her. She didn't open it. Not yet. The sun dipped behind the tree line, turning smoke into streaks of orange and gold. Somewhere, a helicopter passed far overhead. A faint thrum against the quiet. Denise watched it go, her eyes tracing the sky. She was still here, still alive, and for once people were seeing her. The sound of tires on gravel broke the tension like glass. A dusty Humvee rolled onto the shoulder of the highway, emergency lights flickering dimly through the early dawn haze. Two Army personnel in fatigues stepped out, one holding a printed satellite phone, the other scanning the area with practiced urgency. They weren't responding to a 911 call. They were tracking a missing aircraft from one whose signal had gone silent 20 minutes earlier. That helicopter. As they moved along the tree line, something caught their attention. Not the scene by the car, but behind it. Thin black smoke rising above the treetops, barely visible unless you were looking for it. One of them, a staff sergeant with a hardened edge to his stride, narrowed his eyes. "See that?" he asked, pointing through the brush. The younger private nodded. "We've got smoke. That's fuel burn." They rushed forward, pushing past the parked sedan and the small gathering around it. The officer paused just long enough to glance at the scene. Denise on the ground, hands zip-tied behind her back, her clothes soaked in blood, still coughing smoke. The cop was distracted, trying to radio for an ambulance, while the man who had accused her was talking loudly about a stabbing gone wrong. "Sir," the staff sergeant barked, voice cutting clean through the noise. "What's going on here?" The police officer looked up, stunned. "There's been an attempted murder. We're detaining—" "Attempted what?" the sergeant snapped. "You didn't see the damn smoke?" He pointed again. "Black Hawk down near this sector. Female ranger on board. Crash sites right through those trees." The policeman's face went pale. The man with the car stepped back, his confidence flickering. "Step aside," the sergeant ordered. If she was dragging someone, it wasn't to hide a body. It was to save one. The officers pushed past the group, cutting through the underbrush. The smell of burning oil thickened with every step, and then they saw it. Twisted metal, shredded rotor blades. One section of the tail jammed against a collapsed shipping container, and just 10 feet from the blackened wreckage, a trail of blood and boot prints, all leading back toward the road. "She really pulled her out of that?" the younger private whispered. The staff sergeant didn't answer at first. He walked slowly to the path Denise had carved with her own body, saw the gouges in the earth, the spots where she must have stopped to catch breath she didn't have. "Get medevac on the line," he said finally. "She dragged a soldier out of a blast zone." Back at the roadside, Denise was still coughing when the men returned. The police officer looked stricken, unsure whether to apologize or disappear. The army men didn't wait. They knelt beside her, cut the zip ties free. "You're not under arrest," the sergeant said quietly. "You're the reason she's alive." Denise blinked at him, soot and confusion still blurring her vision. "She okay?" she croaked. "She will be," he said, "not because of you." A few steps away, the man who'd accused her leaned on his car, mouth hanging open as the enormity of his mistake settled over him like ash. He didn't say another word, and for the first time that night, Denise felt the weight start to lift. 3 days later, under a cool silver morning, Denise Booker stood awkwardly in the middle of an empty army hangar. The smell of machine oil clung to the walls. No reporters, no flashing cameras, just 5 uniformed soldiers standing in quiet formation, and the echo of her dog's soft whine as he lay curled at her feet. Denise had showered. Twice. The barracks nurse had insisted. She wore the same jeans and patched jacket she'd been found in, but they were clean now, faded but not filthy. Someone had even stitched up a tear in the right sleeve. Her hair was brushed back, still wild but less tangled. Her palms kept tightening into fists without her noticing. Across from her stood Captain Elena Rivas, upright but pale, leaning slightly on a crutch. The woman Denise had pulled from the wreckage, the same woman whose uniform had been scorched and shredded, now replaced with ceremonial dress blues. A bandage peeked out just below her collar. "You didn't have to come," Rivas said, her voice firm but soft. Denise gave a shrug. Didn't seem like a choice. Rivas stepped forward slowly, each footfall echoing across the hangar floor. "This medal," she began, holding out a small velvet box, "is the Army's Civilian Award for Valor. It's usually given at big press events, speeches, photos, but I asked for this one to be private. Just the people who matter." Denise stared at the box, then back at her. "I'm not a hero," she mumbled. "No," Rivas said. "You're a stranger who ran toward fire when nobody else did. That's something rarer than heroism." With great care, the ranger opened the box and pinned the bronze medal to Denise's frayed jacket. It sagged slightly from the weight, as if the cloth didn't quite know what to do with such a thing. Behind them, one of the soldiers snapped to attention, then another, then all five saluted in unison, their boots sharp on concrete. One soldier muttered, "The internet's got it backwards. This is what heroes looks like." Denise looked at them, really looked, then quickly away, embarrassed by the gesture. She muttered, "This too much for a bridge rat like me." Rivas gave her a knowing smile. "That's what the world thinks. Doesn't mean it's true." After a moment, Denise reached down and scratched her dog's ears. He thumped his tail against the floor like it was his own applause. "Guess we did good, huh?" she whispered to him. Later that evening, as the city began to settle into itself again, Denise returned to the underpass. She had no illusions. A medal didn't change the world. Her cart was still tucked in the same spot. Her blanket was still thin. But now, tucked under the cart's tarp was a new metal bowl for her dog, a case of sealed meals, and a thick military-grade sleeping bag she hadn't asked for, but didn't turn down either. Cars still rushed overhead, but when one slowed down briefly and a little girl waved from the back window, Denise smiled. And that smile, for once, didn't come from survival. It came from knowing that, for a moment, someone out there saw her. A week passed, then two. The explosion near the highway was long cleared, the wreckage hauled off. The army made no public spectacle of the crash, no interviews, no televised statements. But quietly, among soldiers and street corners alike, the story spread, not about the crash, but about the woman who lived beneath it. Denise Booker's routine didn't change much. Mornings were still cold. Her bed was still concrete. The sound of trucks above still shook the bones. But small differences began to stitch themselves into the corners of her day. The old man who worked at the corner diner started leaving a paper cup of hot coffee by the dumpster near closing. No questions asked. A young woman in scrubs dropped off a bag of food once a week, said nothing but always smiled. And sometimes, just sometimes, a pair of uniformed boots would stop a few feet from her fire drum. They never stayed long. Never spoke unless spoken to. But one would give a small, solemn nod, a hand raised in salute. Then they'd walk away. She never got used to it. One rainy evening, Denise sat curled beneath the underpass, her dog snuggled against her side. She watched the water stream down in crooked lines, carving paths through the city's grit. In her hand was a piece of crumpled newspaper. Someone had left it on top of the food crate. A small column on page 10, just a few lines. Unidentified civilian credited with saving Army Ranger in highway helicopter crash. Officials confirmed the soldier would not have survived without immediate extraction. Sources say the civilian declined to be named. Denise snorted, folded it up, and tucked it under the blanket. "Unidentified," she muttered. "I guess that's me." Her dog let out a low huff, as if in agreement, or maybe just bored. "Fine by me," she added. "Let 'em believe whatever makes the world spin easier." But deep down, she knew Captain Rivas hadn't forgotten her name. Neither had the soldiers, who nodded with quiet respect, and neither would she forget theirs. That night, a teenage boy approached the fire drum cautiously, holding a Tupperware container. "Are you the lady from the crash?" he asked. Denise blinked. "Who wants to know?" "My brother's in the army, he said. "He told me what you did." She said nothing, just stared. The boy handed her the container. "It's chicken, still hot." He turned before she could respond. As she opened it, the warmth hit her face like a memory. She smiled, just a little. No medal, no headlines, just dignity. And for someone like Denise Booker, dignity was worth more than anything else the world ever offered. Overhead, the traffic never stopped, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel invisible. And beneath the underpass, the light from her small fire burned a little brighter than usual, not from the flames, but from something far rarer, respect. Would you have believed Denise if you saw her dragging a bleeding soldier through the fire? Do you think the military should have done more to recognize what she risked that night? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every one. And if you believe heroes don't always wear uniforms, hit that like button. If Denise earned your respect, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one of these powerful stories. Got someone in mind who should hear this? Share it with them now. It might just shift their perspective. And while you're here, go ahead and watch the next video on screen. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, with a brand new one.